everyone, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today I am fully prepared for fall. I'm wearing a sweater despite the heat outside because we're chatting through my most anticipated upcoming fall book releases. And this video is sponsored in part by Disney Book Group. Say what you will about 2020, one good thing that has come out of this year is that the book releases throughout the past months and coming out through the rest of this year are next level incredible. I had such a hard time narrowing down the books I wanted to chat about for this video in and itself, and I'm just talking about 2 months, September and October. There are just so many amazing titles. I cannot wait. My bookshelves are crying a little bit, but you know what? It's fine. All I do is read right now anyway. I'm not leaving, so might as well just continuously, pile up the books in my apartment. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the first title, which is The Trials of Apollo, The Tower of Nero, which is coming out on October 6th. And guys, this is the 5th and final book to the Trials of Apollo series put out by Riordan, which is honestly one of my all-time favorite middle grade series. It is just so good, chef's kiss amazing. I have loved all of the books I've read so far, and I personally plan on catching up before the 5th one comes out in October, which, by the way, still time. Feel free to marathon the first 4 books because I cannot articulate this enough. You will have a blast reading them. And if you're not familiar, the Trials of Apollo series follows our main character Apollo, who is cast down from Olympus and turned into a mortal 16-year-old boy who the only thing he has to his name is a bunch of pocket lint, some new acne, and a learner's permit. You follow Apollo as he has to go on a quest to save the world by reawakening a bunch of oracles and putting a stop to the reawakening of a bunch of evil Roman emperors that are coming back from the dead. This series has all of the charm and adventure that you have come to love within all of Riordan's series, but the reason why I love this one even more is Apollo as a main character. Being turned from a god to a teenage boy, let's just say he has quite the ego he needs to work through. Apollo obviously is used to working with demigods, just kind of telling them what to do, then they do it, save the day, and he doesn't really have to, put in any work. But now he's the one doing the questing, which is definitely turning the tables on himself quite a bit. So a lot of the dialogue and the interactions Apollo has throughout the series are just so funny, but also there's the inevitable and lovely moments of him realizing, becoming more human, making those amazing connections and friendships, and just having a blistering good time. The cast of characters is also amazing. The Roman emperors make awesome villains, and truly it's just such a great middle grade series that will just make you smile. So entertaining. I flew through the first 3. I'm going to be reading the 4th one before the 5th one comes out this October, but definitely one of my most anticipated releases coming out this fall. All right, moving on to what I feel like is a lot of you guys' most anticipated books, including myself, and that is The Invisible Life of Adie LaRue by B.E. Schwab. It's no secret, love B.E. Schwab's books. I think I've read pretty much all of them. I personally find them to be very imaginative. She has a great writing style, and I really love her characters and her romances. So this book, needless to say, is one I cannot wait to get my hands on. It's coming out October 6th, and I personally am waiting till October to read it because I feel like it's going to be the perfect fall vibes kind of read. This also is centered around a trope that I personally really love to read in books. It follows our main character who in 1714, in a moment of desperation, makes a bargain to basically live forever, but also is then forgotten by everyone she meets along the way. And so begins a dazzling adventure through centuries of time where we follow Adie LaRue, and everything changes when she stumbles across a boy in a bookstore who remembers her name. Again, I love this trope. I love that this book is across a bunch of different centuries of time, so from a historical influence, I feel like it's gonna have so much going for it. I am pumped for this. I've heard such good things from early reviewers, so this is definitely one I will read immediately as well. Next up, we have The Bone Shard Daughter, which comes out September 8th. And this looks like a dark, grim, gruesome fantasy that I definitely need right away. This book is set in an empire controlled by bone shard magic, and the emperor is able to basically control and has power by using bones to create these animal constructs that kind of keeps everyone in line. However, the empire is kind of falling apart and rebellion is sweeping across the land, making the emperor's hold on power weakening as the days pass. Our main character Lynn is actually the daughter of the emperor, but she has kind of been removed from succession but she vows to take power for herself and reclaim her rightful place on the throne by learning the forbidden magic of bone shard magic in it itself. Again, this magic system really intrigues me. It seems really dark and kind of bizarre. I love an empire kind of crumbling and falling apart and individuals rising to power wanting to seize it themselves. It seems dark. I'm very, very interested. I will be picking this book up. Next, we have The Once and Future Witches, which comes out October 13th. And this book really calls to me because it's combining a lot of my favorite things, and that is a historical setting and witches. We follow a group of sister witches in 1893, and they live in Salem, and they're not supposed to be witches. They don't exist, but they exist, and they are in fact witches. And they join the suffrage movement, begin to like read forbidden words to try to turn that into a witches movement. So I don't know, it sounds kind of bizarre, magical, and I love a sort of like coven sister magic trying to like take over the world kind of thing. Has really good early reviews as well, so I will be picking this up and hopefully reading it in October, because witches, October, Halloween, what more could you want? Next, we have a book that has technically come out, but it came out on September 1st, which is still in my mind fall. So we're gonna be chatting about it today, and that is Cemetery Boys. This is a queer YA fantasy story that I have heard so many amazing things, especially from Adie, and if you haven't checked out their channel, I will leave them down below. Seriously amazing content, check them out. But this follows our main character, Yadriel, whose traditional Latinx family is having a hard time accepting Yadriel's gender. And in an effort to prove himself to be a real brujo, him and the help of his best friend and cousin decide to summon a ghost of their murdered cousin to try to find out what happened and also set them free. However, when they attempt to do this, they actually summon the wrong ghost and instead confront Julian Diaz, who is the school and resident bad boy. And when Julian kind of doesn't want to leave Yadriel alone until he himself can kind of like tie up his own loose ends and figure out what happened to him, things begin to get very complicated, especially when these two boys begin to maybe fall in love. Yes, a ghost love story, summoning ghosts, I don't know. I've heard amazing things. I'm very excited about this book. All right, the next book is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novak. It is no secret that Naomi Novak is one of my favorite authors of all time, and she's also like the queen of fantasy standalones. So brings me to this like dark academia magic school new release coming out on September 9th. Everything about this book makes me feel like I'm going to love it to death. And yeah, it basically is set in a magic school called the Sholomance, which is a very intense place where like failure means death. There are no holidays, there are no friends, there's no help. You're studying magic, and if you do a bad job, you're out of there and you can't come back. And this follows our main character, Elle, who is at this magic school, and she's basically starting to kind of try to uncover its secrets, which leads her to a lot of dark and dreary places. Again, really all I had to see, it was written by Naomi Novak, it's a magic school, it's a dark magic school, say no more. I'm definitely reading this. Next book on my list is Legendborn, which comes out September 15th. Now, I feel like this is going to be like the next big series. So many people have read and loved this already, and just the synopsis and everything about it seems epic. A lot of people are kind of comparing it to urban fantasy like we see in the City of Bones, but also in my opinion, reading about it, it might have like dark academia elements as well. This follows our main character, Bree, who after the sudden and unexpected death of her mother, she basically wants nothing to do with her memories associated with her family. And she's now about to start her freshman year at UNC Chapel Hill, which to her seems like the perfect escape. But that is until Bree witnesses a deadly magical attack on her first night on campus. This kind of introduces her to like a secret magical society where she's indoctrinated, and there I think she learns to like unlock her powers and also learn more about her family's past. So yes, this is about a group of students fighting monsters on campus while also attending classes. This just seems so interesting, and I just kind of love the sort of secret society, kicking butt, saving the day sort of thing, and like dark magic and hidden powers. Yes, is all I have to say. Next up, we have The Memory of Babel. This is book 3 to the Mirror Visitors Quartet, which is a book I have been highly anticipating, and this comes out September 8th. This is book 3 to one of my favorite YA fantasy series of all time. I have loved the first 2 books, so to say that I'm excited for this third one is an understatement. Mirror Visitors Quartet is one of the most unique interpretations of YA fantasy I've ever encountered. I feel like I talk about it a lot, but we're going to talk about it a bit more. It essentially follows our main character, Ophelia, who in the first one basically just wants to live her life. She wants to run her museum, she wants to be left alone. She has a very interesting set of magical powers where she can travel through mirrors and also touch objects and see their entire history. However, at the beginning of the book, Much to her dismay, her family has secured her a marriage and a match on a faraway spire, and this is because she's basically turned down everyone else on her own spire. She honestly has no interest in getting married, but unfortunately her family forces her hand and she has to travel to this new spire. In this world, basically, there are different spires that are floating in the sky, and each spire is controlled by a different family spirit that's coming from either mythological background or religious background. There's different magic on each spire. And she travels to a new one that is very cold, very desolate, and I would kind of describe it as like Versailles meets Russian court politics. It's incredibly cutthroat and, needless to say, very different from where Ophelia came from. The magic there is also all about illusions and tricking people, and everyone is basically trying to appease the family spirit to the deaths of other people, basically, to gain as much power as possible. This book also has a very unusual and different romance, which is one that I honestly found very refreshing. Loved the first two. I love Ophelia. I love the magic. I love everything about this. I'm pumped for book 3. Next up, we have the Blazewrath Games, which comes out October 6th, and this book just really caught my eye, first because the cover I think is so cool and beautifully done, but the synopsis just like captured my heart immediately. It is a contemporary fantasy story set in an alternate world where dragons exist, and our main character is essentially a very good dragon rider, and she's entering this sort of like World Cup competition and racing all sorts of other people around the world in the World Cup of dragon racing. I don't know, I feel like this is sort of calling my name because obviously I love fantasy, but I've been really into sports anime recently, and I feel like this is going to be kind of combining two of my favorite things in one, which is fantasy and dragons in some sort of like competition-like setting. I hope it's fun. I hope it has lots of humor and intensity. I hope our main character is best friends with her dragon. I love it all. I also hear this has really great queer romance and queer rep as well. So yeah, this just seems like a lot of fun, and it's kind of like speaking to my sports anime lover heart and my love for dragons in general. So, you know, it's a win-win. Next up, we have Black Sun, which is the first book to a new trilogy, which honestly looks exceptional. This book is written by Rebecca Roanhorse, who is a very beloved author, has won all of the fantasy awards, so this new trilogy has definitely caught my eye and I'm really excited to dive in. This is a series said to be inspired by civilians of pre-Columbian Americas, woven to a tale of celestial prophecies, political intrigue, and forbidden magic. Also, it is said a god will return when the earth and sky converge under a black sun. This looks like it's going to have amazing magical folklore woven in with some intense political drama and fantasy. I love folklore and fantasy. I've heard such good things about this author. I think this is going to be an intense multi-POV fantasy story, which honestly, say no more. I'm reading it, and this comes out October 13th. Next on my list is SkyHunters by Marie Lu, which comes out September 29th, and this is a new YA fantasy sci-fi story. And this follows our main character Talon, who will do anything to protect her fellow soldiers as well as her homeland Mara. This is set in a world where Mara remains the last free land, and there is a body called the Federation, which is this warmongering, dominating government body that uses these magical beings or ghosts to essentially take over and colonize everyone else. And again, Mara's the last remaining piece of land that hasn't been taken over by the Federation. She will do anything to protect the one she loves from this possible fate. But when a mysterious prisoner comes from the front lines from the Federation, I think something mysterious begins to happen, and I don't know, even the synopsis is very vague, which I think is going to be great. I get the impression that this is going to be very fast-paced, lots of twists and turns, and like an adrenaline lace that will just like keep you turning the pages. I'm a big fan of Marie Lu. I actually have quite a few books on my TBR from her for this year, so let's just add another one to the list. Next, we have The Reckless Afterlife of Harriet Stoker, which comes out September 3rd, and I honestly feel like this is going to be a perfect book for October. It essentially follows our main character, Harriet Stoker, who dies, and then she wakes up in the afterlife, and she's kind of introduced to this motley crew of people who all have different magical abilities, and then she finds out she has magical abilities, and kind of like an adventure mystery starts from there. However, when Harriet becomes very obsessed with not only learning about her new power, but unleashing her new power, even if it might harm people around her, I think this book gets very, very dark. Hence the title, The Reckless Afterlife of Harriet Stoker. Again, ghosts, the afterworld, all of these things really intrigue me. Perfect fall read. I hope it's full of atmosphere and mystery. I gotta get it. The last book I have to talk about is definitely one of my most anticipated books of this year, and that is Hollowpox. The Hunt for Morgan Crow, which is Nevermore Book 3, a book I feel like I've been waiting for years. It actually might be years. And this is the third book to the Nevermore middle grade series, which is by far and away one of my most favorite middle grade series out there. It is imaginative and whimsical and all the things that you want in middle grade fantasy and adventure. It follows our main character Morgan Crow in the first one, who essentially has been destined her whole life to die on her 11th or 12th birthday, and essentially up until then she is essentially deemed as bad luck, and everything that happens around her and her town is always her fault. If someone breaks a window, if someone gets a cold, it is Morgan Crow's fault. However, on the eve of her birthday, she is swept away to a different magical land called Nevermore, and there she essentially stays at this magical, amazing hotel and enters to be a part of the secret society of other magical individuals. She has to enter all of these trials. She makes friends along the way. It's just such a clever and fun place to be. And the magic is actually really unique. It's kind of centered around the concept of bad luck or like superstitions, which is super interesting. A really fast-paced series, one that will catch your attention right away and you'll fall in love. I actually hope to reread the first 2 books before this 3rd book comes out, just to kind of refresh my memory. But yeah, my to-read list is truly getting out of control. But regardless, I will be buying this 3rd book right away, and this comes out near the end of October, as I said. Honestly, if you haven't checked out this series, I would super recommend it. It is so much fun and you will love it. Alrighty guys, those are my most anticipated fall book releases. Before I go, quick reminder that you can still catch up on books 1 through 4 of the Trials of Apollo series by RIORDAN before the 5th and final book comes out this October. Big shout out again to Disney Books for working with me for this video, and I will see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye!